Every time there's a new environment, it forces me to reassess. Working, I don't know, 40, 30 hours a week, those 30 or 40 hours is far more productive. It gave me permission to focus on those things that motivate me and say, screw it to everything else.
This is Peggy, and today our guest is Mike Sigal. Hi, Mike. How are you?
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
Very good. It's great to have you. Love the background from Portugal. You're gonna, I'm sure, tell us a bit more about that.
Absolutely. Here, there, let everyone appreciate it.
Thank you. So you're an advisor to startups, corporates, funds. You're also an investor. You're a public speaker. I mean, you're the man when I have a question. You've been, an inspiration, a great friend, and I would say a source of knowledge for me for years. So I'm super happy to have a chance to discuss with you today. And maybe we can just get started. Can you share your professional journey? And I think what's very interesting is also your personal circumstances and how it has weaved into your journey. That would be super interesting to hear about that.
Well, sure. So I started my first tech startup before I graduated from UC Berkeley. And what prompted it was a friend of mine came to me that I was in class with, and he was asking me for some ideas about, at the time it was clip art, because he was doing something entrepreneurial and he needed artwork for it. And as we talked more and more, we realized there was this gap in the market. And I hadn't, to that point, I think it was my senior year, really hadn't enjoyed any of the corporate jobs that I had interned in. And so I sort of got sucked into doing a startup and realized even then that I really liked the process of turning ideas into reality. It was really engaging, learning all the stuff I didn't know, all that kind of stuff. And so that was the first startup in a series of 7 over my career, almost 8, but 7. Some of which, were successful, most of which were not, some of which raised capital, some of which returned capital to my investors. And that sort of has been the distinguishing factor of my journey until, I don't know, about 7 years ago, when after deciding not to work on my 8th startup, I realized I preferred to be coach rather than player, to start giving back all of the useless information that I had collected in my head. And that same period of time, I became an early stage venture capitalist for a while. And that really solidified for me that I really do love the teaching and the coaching parts of working with folks, even more than the process of investing. And that's what sort of kicked off the speaking career, because it was more opportunity to teach and have impact and that kind of stuff. So that's been sort of my journey, is moving from entrepreneur to investor to advisor, and then just sort of finding different platforms to try and help people.
And
how's that?
I have an unfair advantage on the viewers in the sense that I know you very well. So what I would say is also very specific to you from my perspective is how global your mindset is. You're always between two planes. It really fills your cup. Anything you want to add into your journey and all that with this world mindset?
So this dials back to the year 2000, just before the internet bust. I was speaking at a conference in Eastern Europe somewhere and met this woman that I just thought was fantastic. I got back from that trip to the Bay Area, and the company I was working for, the new CEO called me in, asked me about the trip, and said, we're paring down the team, and so we're going to let you go. And at the time, it was they gave me a great severance package. But the next day, I was on a plane back to see that woman in Eastern Europe. And, what ended up happening is over the next 3 years, I was living in London, Amsterdam, and Paris during the internet bust years. And it was sort of then that I realized my actual career is gerrymandering work to support my travel habit.
Exactly. And I'd love, and we're going to get to that, to, what you're doing, why Portugal, what's happening with you. But that's probably one of the things I've always been so impressed with you, is your ability to go from one country to another. You're coming back from Portugal, you're going to Colombia in 2 weeks, like you're really, really, you're not just traveling to one part of the world, like it's.
Well, it's like I said before, I like the teaching, I like the sharing. And at least until COVID happened, getting to come from Silicon Valley and all of its experiences and, sharing that with entrepreneurs, which I have a fundamental belief in as one of the most sort of powerful forces for good on the planet. If I get a call from, someone in Hungary or someone in Thailand or someone in Colombia and say, hey, look, we're going to pay your flight down. We want to let you see the ecosystem down here. And we just want you to talk to our entrepreneurs, tell them what to expect from starting a company and all of that. Nothing could be better to me, right? Because I get to, my community is entrepreneurs, not Silicon Valley. And so anytime I get a chance to build that community, it's a very easy decision to get on a plane.
I can see that for you, but for many people, that's not the case. One thing I'd love to discuss is the inflection points in your career and the things you've done, or the realizations you've had that made you bring your career to the next level, change your career. We discuss that offline very often. The advice is just, okay, work 100 hours. And it seems to be the one side, especially in Silicon Valley, it seems to be, okay, just work and wear white t-shirt so you don't have to use your brain on what you're wearing. Well, I don't know. I think there's a bit more to life than working 100 hours and wearing the same thing every day. So I'm very interested in what were your actions and how it benefited you.
Oh boy, there's so many. So I guess I'll pick a few. If I go back to, so I did my year abroad, my junior year when I was at Berkeley in Australia. And one of the things I did while I was there was I took a motorcycle tour around the continent by myself for 5 weeks. And I think that was really pivotal, right? I grew up in Los Angeles in an upper middle class family, and so had a lot of infrastructure, emotional, financial, whatever, to deal with. And when I was in the middle of, the outback and the chain on my motorcycle broke, I had to be very self-reliant.
Yeah. Yes.
And I survived and I thrived. I met cool people, all this. So that was a moment where I sort of gained the confidence to go my own path, whatever it was. And I came back from that trip, and that's when I started the first business with a partner. But that was one. I think it'd be hard to put my finger on an exact moment, but every time one of my startup experiences ended, there definitely was the recognition that I for the most part made new mistakes.
Yes.
during the last one, and being able to recognize that, again, survive. No one died because I lost money, or no one, no negative repercussions was another thing that drove me to keep doing it. Right. So that's another one. There was a moment, I remember living in Paris. It was a beautiful spring day, and I was walking across the Pont Neuf to a meeting at Café Marley, right, the cafe in the Louvre. And there was a moment of clarity, right? Because I've been living in Europe at that point for 2.5 years. And I realized that I was getting more done in a morning than most people around me, because they hadn't come out of the Silicon Valley culture, get done in a week. And so that was a moment where I remember saying, wait, there's a lot more to working 100 hours a week, that there's a much better pace to work at, where, if you're not working 100 hours a week, you're working 40, 30 hours a week. Those 30 or 40 hours is far more productive and can do. So it's kind of like there is time for everything, as long as you focus on the things that are enriching and ignore the other stuff.
Well, and
yes, a lot of stories, but those are some of the realization.
Yeah, and a lot of what you're talking about is also very much linked with awareness, because if you don't take that step back to, realize, as you're saying, like your eureka moment in Paris or with your different startup, even when you were doing your motorcycle trips, where when you came back, you're like, oh my God, I was able to do that finally, like I can do it, you have a proof point, so, I do believe that the story is the symptom of your awareness. Maybe that could have been something else. But and another thing is that seems very relevant in what you're saying is another environment to kind of, like you're in Australia, to kind of create this moment of clarity.
I think that may be one of the reasons I go all over the place, is because every time there's a new environment, it forces me to reassess or reflect or whatever that may be. So that's definitely there.
And do you want to share a little bit your last moment of clarity and that might trigger a very interesting career?
New adventure.
Adventures. That's a nice way to say that.
Yeah. So it was a sort of a couple of things that built up to it. It started, with the pandemic and being locked down, right? If I'm someone who claims that, his career is, gerrymandering work to do my travel habit, nothing could be more depressing than being locked up in an apartment. What turns out is, the ass end of the planet, right? San Francisco is actually far from everywhere. It's the center, formerly the center of the universe for tech, but it's far from everything else. And so part one was the depression that I felt at having what nurtures me ripped away. The second piece was I, through some friends, I was convinced to go to this retreat in Baja for what I thought was going to be 2 weeks, ended up being a month and would have been longer, which is called Modern Elder Academy. And it's really an opportunity for folks, let's call it in midlife, to decide, to reflect and go, well, what's my next act and what's my next act? And in a fashion, it wasn't that I had any particular revelation there, but that it was an environment where everyone was reflecting and sharing, right? So it was like sort of group therapy for super accomplished people. I've had, imposter syndrome sitting there, but everyone had accomplished, and then everyone had the same sort of challenges about figuring out, well, what should my life mean when I step out of that which made me successful? And following on, so that was another thing. And then sort of it showed me some of the things that are emotionally nurturing for me, like, right, community, right, of like-minded people, super important. That a place is less important to me, like some place I call home, than the community that I'm part of. If I can find it wherever I go, then life is richer. And then on the back of that, I took something called the Reese Motivational Profile, which your listeners, I recommend you go do this. I thought it was awesome, but it basically
I did it actually.
Did you do it? Did you? Yeah, it was great. And it's sort of it doesn't really tell you anything that you don't sort of intuit about yourself, but it makes it super clear. And what it did for me is it gave me permission to focus on those things that motivate me and say screw it to everything else, right?
Exactly.
And so it was again, to your point before, awareness. But then the confidence of going, well, if I know what makes me happy, why the hell am I spending any time on anything else?
And doing right that I'm supposed to do, but that don't align with my personal Mike Sigal needs, and that might be okay for Jen Doe, but not for you. I agree with you.
And it's I mean, those other things may really make someone happy, nurture them, all that kind of stuff, but it's not what nurtures me. So
exactly.
So that was a permission to change the way that I do my advisory work, right? And we've talked about that, where I like sort of put out there, here's the kind of people I work with. It's not here's the way I work. It's not for everyone, right? And so I sort of able to switch who I advise. And then it also showed me that I don't need to be anchored. And in fact, if I am anchored somewhere, if I'm not able to travel from there, it's a real problem. And so, once we could travel again, I got an invitation to go to Web Summit in Portugal. I'd been really interested in Portugal for a number of sort of financial reasons. And I went over there and it was just, it was great to be traveling again. It was great to find a new experience again. And in part because of the Golden Visa program that they set up a number of years ago, a lot of tech entrepreneurial people who are also of the same we're global citizens mindset have landed there. So I found this community of like-minded people. And as I was looking around, I found a lot of opportunity to be of service. And so, I'm moving there, and I potentially have a teaching opportunity at one of the local universities. And I've started down the road of setting up a venture fund, because I can invest there, I can invest across Europe, I can teach, and I have these insights about how that environment is likely to develop as more entrepreneurial people are coming in, and think I can, make a lot of money for my investors as well. So
what's super interesting in that story is that you extracted yourself from the ecosystem you're supposed to be in, which is the Bay Area. And that extraction is allowing you to actually walk your own path, which is not the usual, entrepreneur, you stay there and whatever. You moving country, changing the type of, investments you're making, becoming hopefully, like a professor. I mean, these are things that I think would have been very difficult to do if you had stayed and marinate with the same people in the same city. And again, this awareness you have now of what makes sense for you got it because you went outside your comfort zone. You build that confidence to say, listen, that's good for you, for me it's something else, and I'm going to walk my own path, which is easier to say than to do.
But I, again, that the talking with other people who have gone through the same thing, right? The assessments, the personal awareness, like those kinds of things helped me build the confidence, probably over my life, to just, and the fact, like, if you look at that motivational profile, my number one motivation is curiosity. So always pushing myself towards learning new stuff is a lot more interesting than, being settled here.
Well, and you have the opportunity when you're in Portugal as well. It's, Europe is so close to everything, not only you rotate in Europe, but you can go back to North America, South America. It's an easier place to travel than San Francisco, as we were discussing a bit earlier. Is there something, I realize we're already out of time, but is there something else we didn't discuss that you want to mention that you think maybe is a good food for thought for our viewers? I know we already have a lot of food for thoughts right now already.
Well, I'll just say to you, you need to come visit me in Portugal and eat the food.
For sure, like be careful what you wish for,
Oh, no. Right. So my number two motivation after curiosity is eating.
It's eating with friends. I think
with friends. So I guess again, this is a very personal thing, but figure out what makes you happy and then pursue it, at the expense of if you will, of everything that doesn't. I mean, and again, as you pointed out, it's easier to say than to do, but wow, the payoff is just extraordinary.
And like, that's wonderful that it's been many years we know each other, and many years you've been on that journey, and staying now the summit until the next summit. But
it's not a summit, it's just the next step.
What do you call it, when you're a Sherpa and your next base camp, like
exactly.
That's more that. But thank you so much, Mike, for your candor, taking the time and sharing your journey. There are a lot of nuggets for people to feed themselves and understand what matters and what doesn't.
Peggy, always my pleasure to, obviously hear myself talk. No, to talk with you. I've learned so much from you through our relationship over the years. I'm truly grateful.
Well,
so thank you for you, and thank you for the opportunity, and thank you for doing this webinar to help, this whole series to help people sort of anchor themselves in what nurtures them. I just think it's awesome.
Thank you so much. And the gratitude is all mine. So thank you so much, Mike. Have a wonderful day. And thank you again for your time.
My pleasure.